with the village building a couple times this week, and it was just so nice to see students with masks, distanced, working on schoolwork, being polite and thoughtful, and yeah, just really made me happy. So glad that Florence and the team is supporting that. And that's one of the great things that we're able to do with those CARES Act dollars, which we're going to talk more about later. Second thing I wanted to mention is a thank you to the village team. And I feel like I probably just need to set up a Twitter page just to do five or six thank yous a day. But in particular, I was so impressed with the coordination around the protest installation downtown, and just seeing the creativity with our various village team members to like keep everybody safe, that was setting it up on Short Street, to figure out the equipment we needed. I was down there in the morning and I realized that this is just one more thing on top of all the other things that we're asking our village team to do. And I just want to highlight how important it is to the community. And it really just underscores what our village values are all about. So anyway, thank you guys. You're doing great. Last thing, I want to have a COVID check-in. And I, pretty much regularly talk about some of our challenges with COVID and some of the things we need to do now more than ever with the county going into red. People have heard me call out some of the bad behavior on a regular basis. And so there are a couple things we're gonna do for Wednesday's town hall that I'm gonna be working with Chief Carlson and Josue on. One of those is I've come to understand that there's a lot of confusion from business owners and maybe other community members about what the laws are on the state, county, and local level. So we are going to put out a information sheet that will go to all the local businesses and organizations so everyone understands what those laws are. One thing I heard in particular that was concerning was a frontline worker who said he can't tell someone coming up to order without a mask to put on a mask because the law doesn't cover that. That's absolutely not true. And so we need to have these things clarified. And then we also need to have, as I've talked about before, a plan in writing. And I'm going to work again with Josue and Chief on this, but it will have things like what the schedule for a regular patrol downtown looks like, that officers will always have masks in hand, which I know they do. What kinds of protocols we will use if somebody is getting a citation and they don't have an ID. And also for those that are using the medical excuse that they don't need to wear a mask, reminders that the law also requires you to distance. So if medically you can't wear a mask, then you can certainly distance, and I can't think of the medical excuse for not being able to be 6 feet from someone else. So all that being said, we're going to continue to work on this. I appreciate the concerns that have been shared, and you'll hear more on Wednesday and at the town hall. So with that, any other announcements before we move to the consent agenda? Okay. So we've got a consent agenda with the minutes from our last meeting, and I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. Okay, Laura's got a second. Judy, let's go ahead and call the roll, please.
Yes, sorry. Curlis.
Yes.
McQueen.
Here.
So yes.
Yes. Whatever.
Bigger.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Petitions and review the agenda. Anything we need to change, add, modify, or delete? And I realize
I have two nominations for Art and Culture Commission membership.
Okay, so we'll do that when we, and It's actually not on this agenda, but it should be.
It should be, that's my fault.
Okay, so we will be doing board and commission report outs, so we'll put that there. Anything else? Okay, there was a letter from Susan Jennings and Community Solutions. I think that is worth discussing, so I'm going to suggest that we put that on new business. And so this is about purchasing some green space land, possibly. Anything else? Okay, then Mary Ann, petitions and communications.
Yes. And I actually was here. I was looking through my emails to see some late arrivals to the communications, which is why I said here rather than yes or whatever. Anyway, okay. So we have two communications from Demi Reber. One concerned parking around Mills Lawn. She didn't support the plan that was suggested. And she was concerned about the annexation request. And the other communication is also her concern about annexation. We had communication from Cindy and Chris Mucher opposing the diagonal parking on Elm Street. Brian Hausch submitted the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission resolution ensuring equity and diversity. Ursa Northstar had a letter concerning how she feels unsafe. Dirk Lakovich Van Gorp had two communications concerned with how the village is spending its CARES Act money and suggestions for how we could or should be spending it. The Greene County Health Department submitted information that now Greene County is at risk level 3 and guidelines in that regard. And so that is the highest risk level is 4. So we are almost at the highest risk level. Peggy Kobernick had a letter wanting to designate the Mills Lawn property, 2/3 of it being parks and open space. And Liz Porter also had a communication in that regard. There was a petition that was going around with that same request, and I counted 121 names on that petition. I submitted the document that I referred to at our last meeting regarding clarification regarding housing on the glass farm and that property. And then there was the letter that Brian referenced from Susan Jennings regarding the trail that would go from Agraria through the property at the high school to allow bicycle and foot traffic, and a request of the village in that regard. That's all.
All right, thank you, Mary Ann. So we are going to move into legislation. And first up, we have the second reading of Ordinance 2020-23, I believe. And Judy, we can do that by title only.
All right, this is adoption of the 2020 Comprehensive Land Use Plan.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so I think I am gonna say a few things before we open up the public hearing, since this is a second reading. And I actually had a lot of notes, but I think I'm gonna kind of keep it pretty straightforward and just highlight that as the resolution indicates, what we're looking at doing is approving a comprehensive land use plan, which is a vision, which has collected input and feedback from the entire community for over a year. And I was really happy to see the timeline in the packet. I wish that we had so much detail about the participation for the active transportation plan. So Denise, you're hired for tracking those things in the future. So, but I think that really underscores that, again, it's great to have, some last minute comments, and it really underscores why this needs to be a living document. But I do want to say in particular to something that's become fairly controversial around Mills Lawn is that this is really a substantive issue. And if that is something that council feels should be further explored, I think that's great. But it's really not in our purview to be making a decision like that, in my opinion, at council table. But, if there is interest in planning commission or a group working with the schools to talk about this interest, I think that's great. But I just want to make sure that we're kind of focused on like the goal at hand. And tonight, I think that is that we've got a great comp plan, which has gotten a lot of input. We're going to continue to like include all the petitions and concerns and feedback as we move forward. And also, we do not need to talk about parking tonight. We had a healthy discussion about that at the last meeting. So I'm going to ask that, since we've already decided that issue, that we don't revisit it again tonight. So with that, I'm open to Josue or Aaron or Denise, if you want to say anything about the comp plan, then we'll open it to council members, then we'll open it to citizens.
I want to make sure that council received my memo that I sent this afternoon regarding the Mills Lawn issue. As Brian said, because this is a substantive change, this is something that council should consider as a substantive amendment to the comp plan. And then there are other reasons why I don't believe, from a legal perspective, the motion to amend the comprehensive land use plan map, splitting an 8.84 acre parcel that is currently a single parcel into segments with different zoning is legally appropriate, number one. And number two, that the village has to respect that the school district owns that property. It is not village-owned property, unlike the other proposed amendments with respect to village-owned property.
Okay, thanks, Brianne. Denise, did you want to say anything else?
I just wanted to mention that, this plan, unlike what we've had in the past, will be a living document. And as specific approved plans come to us in the future, then they can be linked to this comprehensive land use plan. This will be available on sustainableyellsprings.com. We'll continue to have that. The public will be able to view it, and Aaron will be adding a blank page where people can then make comments, and that will automatically be emailed to staff. So we'll be able to keep up with it as we move forward.
That's excellent to hear. Okay, council members, any comments?
Yes, I can say a few things. I do support the comp plan as it is now, with the zoning map as it is now. I have a number of concerns about changing anything in particular regarding Mills Lawn property. First concern is that the schools were approached by Aaron Sorrell, and the particular zoning that is in place now is what they want. I very strongly feel it would be very wrong for the village to go against what another public entity has requested. Secondly, and I would agree with Brian that this is property is a very significant property in the center of town, and definitely deserves thought on how any future use should be made. But that thought and those deliberations and that community input needs more than just tonight or next meeting. I mean, that's a big deal. And to make any kind of change at this point, I think would be rushing something that is significant. Also, our solicitor submitted her opinions today, which probably the citizens haven't been able to see, with various reasons why she felt that we would be in error to make any change at this point. So for those reasons, I strongly encourage us to support the comp plan as it is now, and at the appropriate time, whether it's a planning commission, a special meeting, whatever, we start with the school's involvement, talk about that property.
Thanks, Mary Ann. Laura?
I think one of the unfortunate things that happened during the process for a lot of folks, and myself included, was that when they see the dark blue shading that indicates public use, that they think it means that, and that that's really how it's gonna stay. And in fact, that's not true at all. What it really means is that a government entity owns it. As far as a comp plan designating a vision and use for properties we don't own, well, that's what a comp plan is. The village owns very few of the properties we're designating a use for in this vision. Number three, citizen, this village has not adequately addressed a good vision for Mills Lawn. And I think most people assume it's always going to stay the green central park of Yellow Springs. That is, has been its essential function for many, many years. I would like Judy to put into the record the 1948 letter from Antioch College to the Miami Township Board of Trustees. And I'm going to quote some language from that letter, that property was given to the school board, then Miami Township, to promote the welfare of the community generally for recreational facilities with a genuine concern for the natural beauty of this property, that it be preserved. Hope that in planning any development of the property, that there's genuine consideration to the preservation of a park, that it's a permanent trust for the general benefit of the community of Yellow Springs and to promote the welfare of the community of which we are part. I think these are important words. I think the community, I think they're inspirational words, and I'm sure the school board would agree with this, that it is for the general welfare of the community. So many, many citizens have, when they became aware of this issue, have tried to petition council. I do have a question about what is the purpose of having a public hearing on a second reading if we are intending not to change one thing? I think that negates what citizens have to say. If we really want to give some efficacy to a public hearing, maybe we need to move it to the first reading. I don't know, but the process is not good where we're asking citizens to come and give public comments, and then we're saying we're not going to change one thing if we hear something that makes a world of sense to us. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. Lisa or Kevin, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I would just, nothing real substantive. I would certainly agree with Mary Ann's comments about the approach and the caution that we are using as we move forward. Definitely want to thank Aaron Sorrell and the Community Planning Insights Group and all the folks that Denise listed, and thanking them for all the work that they've done. This, I think, is a good plan. We've talked, it's been mentioned a couple of times that it's a living document, so it's not intended to be set in stone, but it is certainly a great start or a good representation of where we are now as a community. And again, just want to issue my thanks and congratulations for all the folks who've contributed to putting together such a good work product.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Lisa?
Lisa, you're muted.
Oh, sorry, double mute. I was double bagged there. I want to thank Aaron and his team, as well as the many community members who participated and gave feedback. Regarding the Mills Lawn property, as a member of the Yellow Springs Development Corporation, I've seen how critical it is in a community our size to work in collaboration with the major stakeholders. And so we, as the village council and village government are not the only critical stakeholders. And particularly when we talk about Mills Lawn, we owe, I think, respect and collaboration and communication to the superintendent of schools as well as the school board. And, we didn't open this up as an open dialogue with them. And I believe, as a person, I believe in what's called a servant leadership, which is, a way of helping, using leadership to help lift everyone up together. And so I understand on one hand, the desire to preserve this open space, but on the other hand, I think that we're not to the place that should be put in writing in this comprehensive land use plan. And I am not concerned that by not doing it at this point, that we're locking us into anything that would prevent us from working collaboratively with other stakeholders and community members when the time is right for that property. I don't feel that, it has to be forced into this particular land use plan. So, I think it's just not time yet. So thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. And I just want to, I guess, kind of respond to something that Laura said, because in general, what I'm hearing is that we're all on the same page, right? This is a valuable piece of land that the community cares a lot about, and we should approach it in a intentional, collaborative manner. But I do want to correct what I think is a mischaracterization about the process, which, we did not get as much feedback as the active transportation, temporary plan that we tried, but we got pretty close. And I think related to that, it really underscores that the feedback was really good in this process. And then it went through a very detailed process with Planning Commission. So we had a very healthy dialogue and discussion at our last meeting, made some great modifications that I think were not substantive. But again, like what we're coming down to is, are we going to make a decision tonight to make a pretty substantive change when that process really didn't happen before? And that's where I think we're mostly on the same page. But before we do get to citizen comments, I would like to know if any council members have any motions, because that would be part of, I think, what citizens might speak to. So are there any motions that any council members would like to bring related to the comp plan?
I'm going to bring a motion, but let me say that I fully expect it to be defeated, but that I would ask that once it is defeated, that this issue be referred to Planning Commission for further discussion. So I'm going to move that, and when I say 2/3, that's an approximate, but I'm going to move that 2/3, the western 2/3 of the Mills Lawn property have a hash overlay showing that the vision is for parks and open space in the comprehensive land use plan.
Okay, and is there a second? Okay, so I'm not seeing a second. And so I guess related to that, I would just ask, as I open the public hearing, that since council has talked about this twice and Planning Commission has also talked about it, and I respect referring it for further discussion, that we do not continue to discuss that issue tonight, because it has been decided. So with that, I'm going to open the public hearing, and if anyone has any comments, it's ideal if you let me know via chat. Otherwise, you can try unmiking, and yeah, so any comments? Okay. All right, so I'm seeing that Parker has a comment. Go ahead, Parker.
Well, just to clarify, are you saying that you are not welcoming citizen input now on the Mills Lawn question?
I mean, we've already decided that that's not going to be part of the comp plan. So it's not a relevant issue, but I think it is an issue that will be potentially picked up at Planning Commission and with the school board.
Well, that's a bit disappointing. So what I would like to then say is I really appreciate all those who signed our petition, which the petition is requesting that the Mills Lawn green space be preserved, long-term through the designation of parks and open space. Thank you all for your support. We started the petition on Thursday in the rain, in a pandemic, and by the end of the day, we had 122 signatures. We are now well over 200 signatures. So as you indicated, there is a huge amount of interest in the village in the future of Mills Lawn. And one of the ongoing concerns is that the Board of Education on numerous occasions has stated the possibility of needing to sell property, and they don't distinguish between Mills Lawn and the property near the high school. They may need to sell this property in order to raise funds for their continued operation. So there's been a continuing fear that the property would be sold for development or for whatever, and that's why we organize and we try to push for preservation of that space. We would like to be able to work together in the future, perhaps some way to compensate the Board of Education for the value of the property, to have it formally recognized as a city park. So I guess that's all I have to say, but thank you for the chance to comment.
Thank you, Parker. And I do want to say, again, I think all council members are, sending a clear signal that we appreciate this effort, but I would suggest going to the school board meeting. And the village will certainly work with the school board and our other partners to facilitate whatever we can. All right, I saw Julie Ford next, and then I got Megan and Maria after that.
Thank you. I have to say, joining with Parker, I'm frustrated, I think, by this process and disappointed in it. We do acknowledge that there's been a lot of work that has gone into this plan. Many of us on this call and many watching at home and not on the Zoom call did participate in that process. And we looked at that plan, even the last version of it, and it said that this portion of Mills Lawn was public use. Among the people supporting this petition or circulating it were engineers and teachers and at least 3 PhDs and a lawyer, and none of us understood that public use did not mean what it sounds like, which was that it would be land available for public use the way that Mills Lawn is now. So we think we haven't been able to have that discussion in the planning committee or the planning process because of that fundamental disconnect between what that language meant and what it actually does. So I think we're frustrated by saying, well, you had your opportunity. I don't think that we did. I think there's also some frustration that when council refers to stakeholders, we talk about the businesses and the school district, but we don't talk about the residents of this community. Most of us, but not all of us who circulate this petition, live near here and see how well used and well loved Mills Lawn is, and don't believe that we had much of a chance to get that communicated. As Parker said, I think there were 120 some signatures in 24 hours. Since that time, the number's over 215. I did the math, and based on the 2010 census, there were 2,800 adults. We've got more than 7% of the adult residents of this community signing that petition in the space of 4 mostly rainy days in a pandemic. So we're happy to continue to have this discussion. We think it probably needs to go to Planning Commission. Suggesting that we take it to the school board at this point is not really helpful because the school board is not immediately looking to do anything with Mills Lawn, but the village has before it right now this plan, and this is an opportunity to make a statement. You've described, Brian, this plan as a vision for the future, and we think this needs to be part of the vision for the future. The school board, we can go there at their next meeting, and this is not going to be on their agenda. At a minimum, I think that speaking for many of us who helped circulate this petition and start this discussion, we would like to see an immediate referral to Planning Commission for this discussion. The village does exercise its planning role for lots of properties that it doesn't own, and that has to apply to property owned by the school board. And I think in particular, when we're talking about this jewel of property in the center of our town that was given to the district with the intention that it be used for the public good. So I think we are asking that this go immediately to Planning Commission.
Okay, thanks, Julie. Megan.
Hi, thanks, Brian. I think what I always want to add onto what Laura was saying in regards to the 1948 letter from Douglas McGregor, I was looking at the history, and it actually kind of goes back to 1945 when Algo Henderson sent a letter to Village Planning Committee, Village Mayor, and the Yellow Springs School Board talking about the future of Mills Lawn. And it was from the beginning, it was a collaborative process with the village and the school board and the college. So I just want to read a little bit of that letter, writing that Mills Lawn is centrally located, includes a beautiful park area, and contains approximately 14 acres. If it could be preserved indefinitely and dedicated for public purposes of the kind mentioned, it would be a great asset for the community through the years to come. The college does not desire to determine the specific uses to be made of Mills Lawn. However, we do want to see it dedicated to the general purposes mentioned above, which will make of it a community center. We desire to give the land to the whole of the community. So what happened from there was a subcommittee of the Village Plan Committee got together and kind of came up with some concepts. The first two was at a community center and an elementary school. So that was kind of the first plan. So if you fast forward a few years, 1948, gift of Mills Lawn to Village given the college okay from the Yellow Springs News. So at this point, the college trustees ordered that a gift deed be drawn up, and the deed had four conditions. The first was that the western 3/5 of the lawn shall always be available for use as a community center, whatever other public use, i.e. a school, may be made for it. 2, that the eastern 2/5 of the property shall be dedicated to uses of tree park without buildings, as well as employed for, quote, other public and recreational purposes, not inconsistent with its preservation as an open tree park. 3, that the title of the lawn shall revert to Antioch College if it is not used for these purposes. And 4, that Antioch College shall have the privilege of occupying Mills House for not more than 3 years. So that was kind of the draft deed. As we all know, in the end, they decided to give it to the school board without any deed restrictions to it. But it's consistent over several years that there was a collaborative process engaged with the village and with Antioch College and the village, making it clear. There were several resolutions that the village also made at that time, stating what they wanted to see in this land. Of course, this is, 70, 80 years ago. So it's a long time ago. But at the same time, there were intentions for this land, and there was a process that was involving the village. So I would encourage the village to remain, engaged in that process in whatever way possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Maria.
Hello, hi. Hi, I'm Maria Booth, and I just want to let you know, I live down the street from the Mills Lawn property, and I've always considered it more of the park and also the school. I have fond memories of taking my kids to the playground when they were little, like toddlers, and then into elementary age. My kids learned to walk in the town using Elm Street, that street, and then the playground was where they rested. And also, I do know that it is the home of 30-ish plus memorial trees that are planted to commemorate and honor the lives of the loved ones who have passed. And the people who planted these trees, they did so with the expectation the trees would last for generations and they would be there forever. And I feel like it's truly a public space for the community. It's centrally located, easily accessible. It's a site of many community activities, just like soccer, disc golf, yoga, tai chi. And actually right now during COVID, it is a great spot for many social distance gathering events. And it is what makes our village vibrant, as it's a site of many festivals, the book fair, art fair, and is enjoyed by locals and tourists. There are new malls that are being built, and actually there's some ones that are already being built, like the Green and the Easton Town Center. They have incorporated green space to evoke the feel of the village, and we already have it, so we don't think it's necessary for us to not put any legislation or anything to protect it as green space. But in the main idea is the heart of our village is the Mills Lawn, the green space, and as always was intended to be protected as green space. some of these trees are ancient and they probably go back to the founding of our country. And so this is sacred ground and we must preserve this green space. And I consider it the heart of our village. And if we lost this heart, then I don't know, we might have to do CPR or something, and I might have to call 911 because, you know, our village might die. So thank you very much.
Okay, thanks,
Brian?
Maria. And
Brian?
yeah, go ahead, Marianne.
Yeah. You know, I just would like to reiterate what I think you said. Everyone on council, I think I can speak for everyone on council, recognizes that Mills Lawn is a very critical, important community space. I think at issue is how we move toward envisioning or re-envisioning its future. Do we do it right now and make this change that really has not had a lot of thought going into it? Or do we develop some kind of process that has wide community engagement over time so we can really think thoughtfully about it and create the best reality from a vision? So I just want citizens to understand that this is not because council is disregarding this property. I think very much more it is that we want to have a good process for how we envision this property. And that's not what's happening right now.
Right. Thanks, Marianne. And I think the one, maybe the most important thing that wasn't mentioned is that we're not talking with the school board right now. And so that needs to be part of the conversation. So I will like also emphasize, what I said at the beginning. We appreciate all these comments. We don't disagree. But again, we have explained why it's really inappropriate for us to make a decision to change the map right now. All right, so I've got a few more people. Well, hold on, Bernadine. I've got a list of folks, and mic off, please. Mary, I have you on next.
Hi, I'm Mary Eby. Thank you. It's good to know that the council understands, of course, how valuable this property is. What I'm hoping is that you would like to hear two concerns and two questions that I heard over and over as I walked the streets and knocked on 90 to 95 doors last Thursday in the rain, in the pandemic, but that's what we needed to do. I heard primarily what I think Laura mentioned earlier, all the confusion and not understanding from the area being noted as public and being understood to be for the public use. And I understand what you're saying as far as the process that needs to happen and the school board being involved, of course. But I think that's a really important point because in the paper, it's identified as public. And then the next question that I heard over and over was that it's zoned high density. Was that marked on the plan, the comprehensive land use plan in the paper? No, it's noted as public, again, understood by many to be for the public use. And then the two concerns that I heard over and over have already been mentioned to a degree. People would say, well, obviously the school district is the entity, the public entity that owns this property now. And we all know the intentions of Antioch, which are important, very important. But surely, I kept hearing over and over again the concern that surely there is a way to fund the improvements that need to be made in the school without selling this centrally located green space. And then the second concern that I heard over and over was related to affordable housing. That yes, we want to have affordable housing, but hopefully we can have affordable housing without, again, losing this green space that is used by so many people. I enjoy the green space, but I also, by living near it, see how many people enjoy it every day. Rarely do I look out the window and not see somebody enjoying the space. I think it's fabulous that Mills Lawn encourages people to use this space after school hours in all the ways that they do. It's and again, this is taxpayers, a taxpayer entity within the village. So thank you for your time.
All right, thanks, Mary. So I've got Michael and then Bernadine. Mike, you still on?
Yeah, I'm there. Sorry, I had to unmic.
Yep.
Sorry about that. I'll be short just to back up what Mary said. I consider myself a significant stakeholder living on the lower end of Elm Street. And I can view every day the usage of that space by locals and outsiders on a daily basis. Briefly, the public use designation, I was snowed, totally misunderstood what that meant, as did a lot of people say. So I was assuming that that would be protected space. And I think I felt that was due to the disapproval of the levy back in 2017 for the project. That was one of the concerns for promoting the saving of the green space of Mills Lawn. I understand what you're saying, that we need to deal with the school board, and I'll take that route. I'll get involved in that to understand what the thought process is for Mills Lawn. But I think having this in the current long-term plan, I just think it should be pulled out if there are further meetings to be had with the school board and whoever to figure out what the best move is for the Mills Lawn property. I'll end with that.
All right, thank you, Michael. Bernadine? Oh, you're on mute.
You know, what the other speakers, what Mary and Parker and some of the other speakers spoke of, I'm in agreement with. And I think that, you know, what this land use plan process has done is it brought to the attention of some of us in the community about how vulnerable the Mills Lawn space really is. It is zoned as high density housing, and it is owned by the school board entity, but in fact, it is public property. Every taxpayer in this village owns a piece of Mills Lawn. We have supported it for over 70 years with our taxpayer dollars. And there has been, the way that that land has been managed is a way in which it's understandable that the community would treat it as a park and assume that it is a park. As somebody mentioned, they've collaborated with the tree committee, and there are, in the back end of Mills Lawn and the property that's under consideration with our concerns, over 30 memorial trees that were planted by people assuming that they would grow to maturity and their loved ones or the events that they were commemorating would be there to inform the community for generations to come. The disc golf, which was instituted as a PBL project by the students, and I watched those kids implement that project. It's a project that was in many ways designed to bring the community onto the school grounds. I have never seen that the disc golf has been implemented as part of Mills Lawn physical education curriculum. I don't see the kids at school playing it. I see the families coming out. You know, Mills Lawn isn't treated like a normal schoolyard. Normal schoolyards don't typically allow events like books in the park and art in the park and Shakespeare on the lawn, all the kind of activities that have been really designed to bring the community together. And I think that, you know, what many of us are concerned about is, because unless the conversations start now, there will come a day, possibly, when Mills Lawn, our elementary school, is no longer there, and the school board will have to make a decision about what to do with that property. And to be deciding it then, rather than to be having active conversations with the people in the community who truly do own the property, the taxpayers, who have willingly supported the school properties for 70 years. I mean, it's amazing to me that in 70 years, only 3 school levies have failed in this community. Do we know how unusual that is? It's a great part of living here. And so because, you know, the community has supported the schools, we really, I think, do need the entire community, including Village Council, Planning Commission, to really encourage those active discussions to be taking place so that we're not trying to make a decision or being reactive to a decision that might wind up having an outcome that we don't want. In my mind, and this is my personal view, you know, the zoning is a real concern because it really leaves that property vulnerable to development. And if it would ever have to go to auction, I think all of us know that property developers have much deeper pockets than conservationists and preservationists. And so acting proactively to protect the interest, the wide interest.
We're getting to 5 minutes here.
Or at 5 minutes? Okay, yeah. And Bernadine, I think actually those comments are a great way to wrap up and close the public hearing, because that's exactly what I heard every council member say, is we do need to be proactive. We do need to address this. The school board needs to be at the head of this conversation. So it's great that there's so much community, I guess, interest behind this. So I want that energy to be directed to the right place. You've heard a commitment from the village that we will help facilitate in an appropriate manner as fits our role. And I would encourage folks not to go to the extreme and, you know, I guess make this conclusion that tomorrow all the memorial trees are gone and we've got high-rise parking lots or something. That's not what's happening at all. So this is why we do these kinds of exercises, so that these issues can come forward. So again, council just wants to make sure that it's done appropriately. And as Lisa said, all of the entities that collect taxes in the village have to work together, and which is why the Development Corporation is such a great thing. So with that, we've closed the public hearing, and Judy, let's call the roll.
Yes, thank you. Stokes.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
Thank you. Curlis.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
And great. And again, thank you, everyone. Yeah, we always appreciate when these issues actually get discussed. All right, so we're going to move.
Brian, can I just make one more comment? It's going to be really quick.
Yes.
I just want to say that the work that people did to get those signatures for the petition should not be thought as lost. Those are foundational work that will carry forward through the ongoing communications. So thank you for the time you spent doing that in the rain. And please know, it's not that they're not wasted. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for emphasizing that, Lisa. And, you know, again, that underscores that commitment to this being a living document. All right, we're going to shift to Ordinance 2020-24. And Judy, we can do that by title only.
This is repealing section 1268.03 exemptions of the codified ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, and enacting new section 1268.03 exemptions.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Denise, how are you doing this? Are you giving an overview for all the legislation, or?
Yeah, I was going to, yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So for this ordinance, it is for, as you know, exemptions. A site plan review is not required for a single family or a two-family dwelling or accessory structures that are in residential districts. Because of this, we added a requirement that stormwater mitigation plan be submitted, in addition to specific requirements regarding the distance of a structure to power lines, which I did clarify in the memo, with 7.5 feet from any structure where a 7,200 volt distribution line is located. And Public Works always reviews the location of the structures to ensure they are outside of that area. So that is what this ordinance is about.
Okay. All right. So second reading. So I'm going to open a public hearing. And do council members have any questions or comments? Okay, Marianne?
Oh, no, I'll say what I spoke to last time, that the work that Planning Commission has done with our consultants, and I'm sure Johnny was involved, and Denise, and a couple members of the Environmental Commission, is such good and important work in terms of creating a storm plan management that both works for the community and works for the environment and works for the Yellow Springs Creek and the Little Miami River and our whole watershed. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Marianne. And I guess I wanted to also add on that, in that same vein, that I know a lot of these kinds of updates of the zoning code don't get a lot of the attention that other things do, but that memo that Denise, you and the team put together is excellent. One of the best things I have seen. Answered every question, and it really does underscore the great work that you and the village team and planning commission are doing. So thanks a lot. Okay.
Brian, I would like to just say something more, because we have some citizens on here, and it's not as stormwater, unless your property or your basement's getting flooded, you're not thinking about it as much as, say, maybe Mills Lawn. But what the work that the village has been doing is really work that, as everyone knows, I think, follow the science, is we're having much more rain events and much stronger rain events. And so there's much more water flowing through. And the kind of the low impact development techniques, whether it's a rain garden or swale or whatever, to slow the water from rushing down the streets and the impermeable surfaces and getting into our waterways and flooding our waterways, it's so important. And there is a lot of information in this on how you can do this in your own yard, on your own property. So it's very cool.
Thanks, Marianne. Laura, did you have a comment or question?
No.
Okay, good. All right, so public hearing is open. Any questions or comments from citizens? And I'm going to assume that Maria's hand up is not for this one, but if I'm wrong, let me know. Okay, so I'm not seeing any questions or comments, so let's go ahead and close the public hearing. And Judy, if you could call the roll, please.
Yes, McQueen.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, next up, 2020-25, title only again.
All right, this is repealing section 1268.06 review standards of the codified ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, and enacting new section 1268.06 review standards.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so once again, I'm going to open the public hearing since it's a second reading. Denise, anything you want to highlight?
Sure. In this section of the site plan review, it states that stormwater and the removal of it will not affect neighboring properties or public stormwater drainage systems. And, we have had times when, after the fact, buildings have been constructed and that has affected neighbors. So because of this, we're adding that requirement of either the section 122607, 06A7, or the appendix that I'll tell you about later. So it is considered prior to and not after a building is constructed. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thanks. Questions or comments from council? All right. And any questions or comments from citizens?
Brian, if you can remember to open that public hearing.
Actually, I think I did.
Did you? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think I said it at the beginning, but I'll open it for
My
sure.
apologies.
Yeah. And all right. So any other questions or comments from citizens before we close the public hearing? Okay, we're going to close it. And Judy, if you can call the roll.
Yes, Curlis.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. 2020-26, title only again, please.
This is repealing Chapter 1260 General Provisions of the Codified Ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, and enacting new Chapter 1226 General Provisions.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Denise?
Okay, so this is 2020-27. Judy, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yes.
Not, okay, I'm sorry. I thought we were on 2020-26.
we are.
Which is general provisions. So that's.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I read the wrong one?
I think so.
Wrong title. Okay, let me redo it.
Title. Okay.
To make certain. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, so this is repealing Chapter 1260 General Provisions of the Codified Ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, and enacting new Chapter 1226 General Provisions, and that is Ordinance 2020-26.
Okay, so let's get a motion again.
I'll move.
And a second?
Second.
Okay.
Second.
Oh, okay. So this a few things in general provisions. It requires that any uncommon lot configurations go before the Planning Commission for approval. It's going to allow for a minimum of 12 feet for driveways. And this was suggested by the fire chief because we are allowing, accessory dwelling units and homes on uncommon lots. And oftentimes these are located further back on a property line. Clarifying how an accessory structure is measured when considering the setback requirements. When it's measured from its furthest extensions, such as roof eaves, balconies, porches, decks, that's only for setbacks. I mean, Greene County Building Regulations deals with footprints, and we do too when talking about size, but for setbacks, we are clarifying that so people don't end up, because we already have very narrow setbacks, in some cases as close as 5 feet from a property line, and you could have a roof that could overhang that property line. This also has information requiring the distance of that security to power structure to power lines, as I mentioned previously, and it also adds the stormwater guidelines for low impact development, as well as storm management systems. Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's open the public hearing. Any questions or comments from council or citizen? Okay, not seeing any, so I'm going to close the public hearing. And Judy, if you could call the roll.
Yes, Stokes.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and now 2027.
All right. This is repealing Chapter 1226 Subdivision Regulations of the Codified Ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, and enacting new Chapter 1226 Subdivision Regulations.
Can I get a motion?
Moved.
Second.
So moved.
All right. Denise?
Okay, so for this, I'm just going to try to hit the highlights. I'd reviewed it previously, but basically we have large sections in town, that were platted, as we've learned, in the mid 1800s. And since that time, lots have been further subdivided and building footprints have expanded. You'll see in the planning and zoning report, we had like 19 additions just this year on houses, as well as many accessory structures that have been added. And at the last meeting, I explained that with the village's goal of infill development, along with our age storm sewer system and the increase in rain over the past 30 years, we really need to do something about stormwater runoff. So we're now, because we're now further subdividing and adding ADUs at the rear properties, our subdivision regulations were last updated in 91. Greene County's was even before that. So with the help of the Planning Public Works Director, Choice One Engineering, the Planning Commission, and actually Tom Dietrich, who's online here from the Environmental Commission, and Nadia Malarkey also is online from the Environmental Commission. We've come up with this draft stormwater regulations for specifically to 122606, the design standards. And this was submitted to the Planning Commission. And basically the way it works for larger developments where there is at least 1 acre or more of impervious surface area. The developer will follow the requirements that are outlined in this section for anything under an acre. The stormwater guidelines for low impact developments will be required, and that'll be in the appendix, which we'll show you in a little bit. Choice one engineering decided to base the calculations on the 24-hour storm event, given that that is what most developers and engineers are used to, but the new regulations will require that the release rate be less. And like I said, Tom is here. If you have any questions related to the technical aspects of 122606, and Nadia will be here for the appendix.
All right, thank you, Denise. All right, I'm going to open the public hearing. Any questions or comments? Okay, a couple things that I did want to mention. One is I've been thinking about, and I talked to Denise a little bit about this earlier with the sidewalks, and I feel like it would be good to make it clearer, particularly in the part about I guess, what is it, the low, in lieu of possibilities, that potentially talking about that we're also open to better practices around those pathways. So I kind of imagined, and I'll probably make a motion to the effect that we would add to that, that it also could be, what did I say? In lieu of a conventional system and or sidewalk design. So I'll talk about that more in a minute, but I think if I understand the intent of what we're trying to do with sewer, that more creative looking at how a sidewalk is done could fit as well. Second thing I wanted to point out is related to trees, and particularly some of the scenarios that we've thought about with Southwest College in particular. Is I want to make sure that we do revisit that tree ordinance that was started probably been a couple years ago now, and then just realize that some things that we put into that tree ordinance may impact what we're talking about in this ordinance. So those were my main comments. I'll wait to make a more formal motion in case there are any other questions or comments from council or citizens. Okay, hearing none, then I'm going to make a motion. This is to 1226.06A1, where it talks about the LID to basically just add and or sidewalk design after in lieu of conventional stormwater systems. So can I get a second?
Could you say again where you are?
So this is 1226.06 Design Standards A1. And there's a new paragraph in there about low density. Do you see that?
Nope, I'm not there yet.
Okay.
It's on low impact, not low density.
Yeah, it's about.
Yeah, low impact, right? LID, yep.
So basically this was to allow people, if they didn't want to follow the conventional system where you have underground piping system to a stormwater detention basin, this is for major developers, that instead we would, and we do have it in there, that we would consider other options, but we would just want to make sure that the calculations by an independent engineer basically match up to the amount of impervious surface area.
Right. And so again, the point that I'm making is that I think by implication that could relate to how a sidewalk is constructed or a walking path. But I think it's a little bit unclear since the focus is only on the stormwater system in that statement.
I second the motion.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yes, I'm still, so I am at 1226.06. What's the next, where?
Subsection A,
Yes,
1, and then there's this low impact density paragraph that's kind of near the top of the next page.
yeah.
All right. So, I mean, just to elaborate a little bit.
Sorry, Brian, will you restate? So in that paragraph, will you restate your suggested
Right. So right after it says, in lieu of conventional stormwater system and or sidewalk design.
So you're just wanting to say and or sidewalk design, just to put that in there. Okay.
Yeah. And we could talk more about, I mean, we have examples in town like Omar Circle and the Fair Acres neighborhood where, the estate layout works very well. I think it does meet our complete streets guidelines. So I just don't want that to, I don't want to send out the signal that we're not open to other ways to mitigate stormwater. And we know that cutting down on the impervious surface is certainly a way to do that.
Okay.
How do I raise my hand? Sorry, this is Tom.
Go for it, Tom.
I'm new to Zoom. I use all the other platforms, but I'm not that familiar with Zoom. Sorry. So in this particular sentence, the whole intent is about stormwater systems that treat all the impervious area. So I'm afraid if we add and sidewalk design, then now we're calling out one specific type of impervious surface and not all the others. Roof design, and we could add and green roofs and driveways and all those others. So I hear what you're saying. I just don't know if that's the exact place to add that to encourage alternative sidewalk design.
Right. Tom, I guess, and that's a good point. I'm happy for a recommendation somewhere else, but this is the same paragraph that does call out sidewalks and pedestrian walkways, which is why I thought it should be.
Yeah, I think what we were trying to do was because, there's not a lot of land left for where there are going to be new subdivisions, that yes, we wanted to have sidewalks. Now, they don't always have to be sidewalks on both sides of the street. They could be on one side of the street only. They don't have to be concrete. They could be another type of surface like asphalt. But as far as the estate street design as we have it now, it doesn't even, the estate street design, unlike Omar Circle, doesn't have curbs. It's like Orton Road, where it's just land and then it has these swales. There's no curb.
Well, that's why I'm good with with leaving out the estate, like what we're doing in the estate format. I just want to capture the fact that something does work in those neighborhoods.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I think because we kind of went round and round about maintenance because we don't want to discourage it, because we also like the idea of natural filtering systems. So storm swales instead of underground pipes is a great idea. We just want to make sure that they're maintained. So in those cases where they would do that in lieu of a conventional system, we'd probably need to have some sort of, either in the subdivision regulation, some sort of agreement that that neighborhood is responsible for maintaining those swales in front of their property.
Right.
Can I make
Nadia?
a suggestion?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry. Maybe further down in the paragraph where it says sidewalks, pedestrian walkways must be included in the design of any subdivision in the village following ADA standards and will be open to alternatives. And maybe that's the place to put it rather than right up front.
That works for me.
Tom, what do you think?
Yes, I think that's the sentence that is causing the heartburn. So I think alternative wording in that sentence is the way to go. Yes, I don't have proposed alternatives right off the fly.
So it said something to the effect, I don't have it in front of me, sidewalks, the asphalt in lieu of concrete asphalt, or as you're saying, Nellie, or other.
What he was saying here, it says in the design of any new subdivision in the village following ADA standards, what Brian had said in lieu of conventional system and or sidewalk design. So somehow getting to the point that the sidewalks don't have to be conventionally designed, that they're open to alternatives. But the thing is, it starts to clutter the language, you know, and I do think that
Could you just add or other alternative designs at the end of that sentence?
Well, I would ask Tom as the engineer if that makes things confusing or not.
Yeah, I mean, again, I would prefer it to be in terms of the design of the whole. I don't think we're precluding, or we are encouraging in the other section of, you know, that the design should allow for impervious or LID techniques as alternatives to any impervious surfaces. So but I hear, you know, Brian saying that this sort of reinforces, maybe is saying, and I'll go in the other direction. I did paste the current language into the chat, that sentence, if anyone wants to see that. Sidewalks, pedestrian walkways, including impervious designs must be, but it says must be included. I don't know.
Or we could say sidewalks, pedestrians, walkways. Is that the language? Must be included in the design. Maybe we shouldn't say must, or all sidewalks, pedestrian walkways that are included in the design.
Yeah, you know, I think, I mean, ordinances are always wordy. So if we just add the first sentence about low impact development will be considered in lieu of conventional to the end of that sentence, then I think it accomplishes the goal.
Oh, for sidewalks, just as we did for the actual, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But even if the whole paragraph is about low impact development, would they just assume that we would exclude sidewalks? I don't mean to belabor the issue. I'm just trying to simplify things.
I think it would be very easy for a developer to look at our ordinance and think that they have to do sidewalks in the conventional manner.
Yeah.
And so I want to send a clear signal. And so I think it's worth clarifying that. Okay. So as long as otherwise, Tom and Nadia, you don't think we're, you know, impacting the rest of what the goal is there, then I think we've had a good discussion. So Judy, let's go ahead and call a vote on an amended motion to add the in lieu of statement after that sentence about sidewalks under 1A.
Well, let me understand it, because I'm not sure I do. Are we saying the sentence sidewalks and pedestrian walkways must be included in the design, et cetera, village following ADA standards, LID will be considered by planning for sidewalks by planning commission in lieu of conventional design? Are you adding that?
Yes.
There. Okay. That probably needs a motion because it's a different thing in a different place.
Well, it's still, we're repealing the entire subdivision regulations, so.
What?
We're not doing one section at a time. We're doing the entire chapter.
Yeah, but we have to vote on to vote on this amendment. Okay, so again, yeah, the motion is to add that LID in lieu of conventional to the end of the sentence about sidewalks.
Okay.
Under 1226.06A1. So I guess I need a second again.
I still second.
Okay, and Judy, if you can call the roll.
Okay, this is the roll call on the motion. Corliss.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments before we vote on the ordinance?
Did everybody, I just have a question in general. Does everybody understand the parkland dedication changes that were made? Is everybody good with that? I kind of rushed through that last time, but just wanted to make sure everybody understood that we were making it very clear that there needs to be parkland dedication for major subdivisions, and if there's minor subdivisions, that there'll be a suggested $500 fee per unit collected that would go into a park and rec fund for future maintenance of these village-owned properties.
Looks good. Any other questions or comments from council or citizens?
Yeah, I have a question. Some of this was pretty technical, and it seemed that what it was saying was that however the stormwater is being captured, that the closer it is to the source, the lower the standard was. Let's say like it would be a 1-year flood instead of a 5 or 10 or 100. And first of all, did I read that correctly? And then if so, why is that the case? I'm looking at like table 1, determining storm frequency for which control is needed. And then as I was reading through it, that was the conclusion I came to.
I don't know if this is something Tom can answer. It shouldn't be. I mean,
which what page or section, or I heard you say table 1, but I don't know what.
Yeah, right. I mean,
it's a long document.
It is, and it looks like I'm on. I have no idea what page I'm on because it doesn't. Everything says 1.
Okay, so you're not on the appendix where it's a stormwater calculation sheet, are you?
It's page 150 on the packet. I can probably pull it up on the screen if that helps.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I found it. Critical storm calculation. Critical storm calculation. Let's see. I don't know what section that is. 7. No. Geez. Yeah, these things are hard to read.
Hopefully it's going to put it up there.
I'm pulling it up.
D, stormwater runoff control criteria.
It's E.
Critical storm calculation, yeah.
That's 1.
Okay.
Is this the one, Marianne?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's the one. I mean, I was getting pretty lost. But at any rate, as I was reading it, it seemed to me that it was saying, if it's the pipe or swale that's right by your house, it only has to serve for a 5-year flood. But then as it gets down further, it has to serve for a 50 or 25 or 100-year flood. And I didn't know whether I was misreading that or not. And
so this table, table 1 here, is you're determining the storm frequency to treat. So that is the far right column, the 3rd column. And it's based on the percent of the increased runoff. So if you are increasing your impervious area more, you have to treat a higher frequency or a longer, a higher storm frequency. So like the 50-year storm, because if you're increasing it 250% of runoff, if you're increasing your runoff lower, you have to treat a lower frequency storm. So
okay.
So treating a higher frequency storm is harder. Yeah. I say higher, so it's actually 50-year storms less frequent, but it generates a larger volume of runoff. So treating that is harder. So this encourages you to create less impervious area and
Okay,
treat a lower frequency storm.
okay.
That make sense?
Yeah, I think so. So, but just, so let's say I have a 100 by 50 foot lot and I have a tiny house, you know, a 400 square foot house. And no driveway, no other impervious surface. So I haven't created much of a runoff other than the land. I have a lot of trees and stuff, and I have a rain garden. As opposed to I have a 15 or 2,000 square foot house on that property with a garage and a asphalt driveway, and then I have to be looking at a higher standard.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Just on Mary Ann's point, this table would also be the example Mary Ann gave. If you were doubling the size of the house from 400 square feet to 800 square feet, that may trigger because you're increasing the impervious surface. So this is where we get into things like building additions, accessory dwelling units, and things that create the impervious surface.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
Did you hear me, Judy?
I did not. I'm sorry, you were.
I might have been on mute. Yeah, sorry. We're closing the public hearing, and if you could call the roll, please.
Yes. Stokes.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Carlos.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is ordinance 2020-28. We can do by title only.
This is appealing Appendix Estate Street section from Part 12, Title 2, Planning of the Codified Ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, and enacting new appendix, Stormwater Guidelines for Low Impact Development.
Okay, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Denise?
Yeah, so this actually applies to more of what Mary Ann was just bringing up. You know, the other calculations, although Tom explained it well, is really for, you know, major developments where you have an acre or more of impervious surface. Typically, the appendix stormwater guidelines for low impact development are for pretty much everyone else. I mean, if you're adding on to your house, if you're building a garage, it's going to require a stormwater management plan. When you're building basically any new structure that is going to increase the impervious surface area of a property. And the overall goal of this is to slow down the stormwater runoff before it even reaches the village's storm sewer system for any structure that's added, whether it's a single family dwelling or, as I said, a garage or shed that's under 1 acre. That will exclude pocket neighborhood developments and planned unit developments because of the high density of those. Oftentimes, they'll have to probably do some sort of detention basin. But this means that each individual lot's going to have a plan to mitigate the stormwater on site. And we think Planning Commission believes that this is really going to aid in slowing down and naturally filtering the runoff before it even goes into our storm system and then into those tributaries like Mary Ann mentioned, the Yellow Springs Creek and the Little Miami River. So basically for developers, a developer is going to have a major subdivision. They're going to have that set of criteria that Tom was explaining, that engineer in the engineering language, that's going to require possible detention basins. But then on each individual lot within that development, each homeowner, or if it's the developer or a contractor, is going to have to submit a plan for each of those properties, just as what they can do on their lot to further mitigate that water on the lot before it hits, whether it hits a swale or it hits an underground pipe and goes into the detention basin and then further then into those tributaries. So Josue, you have 2020-28. If you wanted to put that up or share the screen with that, maybe Nadia can even do a quick overview of that appendix, because there are illustrations for people. There is also a calculation sheet that so people can determine what their the new impervious area is, and then based on that they'll have options. Maybe it's planting a few trees, or maybe it's, you know, adding a rain garden, or there's different options. But if you could share that, that would be great. There it is. Okay, Nadia, did you want to speak to this?
Just a comment that some people might not be aware how much rain falls off of a roof and hard surfaces like our roof. So for each 1 inch of square foot of roof per inch of rain, you get 0.62 gallons of water. And that's quite a huge amount when you multiply some of the roof footprints of some houses. So that's just something for people to bear in mind. For example, the garage that I've just been doing some calculations for someone. This 30 by 25 foot garage, that's 750 square foot of roof would generate, well, with another structure of 705 square feet, let's say it's a smaller house, you're going to generate 800 gallons per inch of rain off of those roofs. And if we multiply it by those high intensity rain incidents that we're having, that's a pretty significant amount of water that's coming down. So the whole purpose of this is to view rain not as waste, but as a resource. And what we hope is that people begin to think about ways to capture rainwater on their property, to slow it down from running off and actually percolate down into their property, so very little goes out. And these are just recommendations. It's sort of just ideas for people. It's not the be all and end all, and it's not necessarily that all of them are technically sound, because, for example, in some rain gardens, if you have enough percolation in your existing soil, you don't need to add in all of the geotextile and the gravel. So it really is a case-by-case basis. But the purpose of this is just to open the door for people to see what possibilities there are. And it's very exciting. I mean, it's really exciting if more and more people are involved in this kind of thinking about their properties and what can be done.
And Josue, if you want to just scroll just briefly through it, just to see some of the options that people could do.
Mm-hmm.
And these are not by any means the exhaustive. There's a lot of different things that people can do.
Yeah. Well,
I just want to just to make sure we're not being misleading, though, Nadia. These things are the approved elements that can be implemented. There are maybe alternatives. You're saying that there are things beyond what we have here, but these are the ones that, if you submit a plan using these items, following these guidance, you can get your plan approved.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And if you scroll down at the very bottom, Tom was helping too with the stormwater calculation sheet is what a person would turn in. After you get through there it is.
Big numbers.
Yeah. And then beyond that, once you figure that out, whether you're doing it in gallons or cubic feet, you go further down, and it can give you options for what you could do. Like for that amount of water, you might need to plant 3 trees, or, you know, if you wanted to do an infiltration trench, this is how wide it would need to be to capture that amount.
All right, this looks great. So I want to make sure that I've opened the public hearing. And do we have any other questions or comments? Okay. I'm not seeing any. So yeah, Nadia, Tom, thank you so much. Excellent work. I'm going to close the public hearing, and Judy, if you can call the roll, please.
Curlis.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Tausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Ordinance 2020-29, title only, please.
This is the 2022 third quarter supplemental appropriations and declaring an emergency for the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio.
All right. Can I get a motion?
I move.
I'm second.
Okay, so we're reading this as an emergency, as we typically do with supplementals. So I'm going to open a public hearing for that. And so Josue, is this you, or does Matt make his debut?
I think this is primary mine, but Matt can make his debut here if he wants to take it.
All right.
As you know, we are our third distribution from the CARES Act funds, and Green County Auditor David Graham is here, so he's been instrumental in supporting us and how we manage the COVID funds. So thank you, David, for all you've done. So this ordinance before you, there are two elements to it. One is to recognize the third distribution of the CARES Act funds, totaling $134,917.83. Those are being appropriated to its own special revenue fund, that is revenue fund number 222, a local coronavirus relief fund. The second aspect to this supplemental appropriation is adding an additional expense in personnel that's related to back pay that is due to council members, both current and former council members. So there's a schedule attached in your council packet that shows the breakout. So that's included in the packet, and we're looking at a total of $10,800 in wages, and the additional amounts are the OPERS contribution and some FICA contribution, totaling $13,138.20. Matt, did I miss anything?
I think that sounds right.
Okay. Do we have any questions or comments from council or citizens?
Yeah, I mean, it's great, but what happened?
Sure. Thank you, Mary Ann. There were 3 years that the amount that was paid to the council members and the mayor were underestimated. In 2017, the difference was $30 per month. On 2018, the difference was $60. In 2019 was $60. So this was caught at the end of 2019, and we didn't get it done earlier in this year, and this is at the time that we need to get it done. So now for payments made 2020 and moving forward, those have been corrected. So we don't anticipate this issue moving forward.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, if not, I'm gonna close the public hearing, and Judy, if you can call the roll.
Yes. McQueen.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Tausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, last piece of legislation, and I'm going to read this one in myself, is Resolution 2020-43, titled Celebrating Karen Wintrow's Contributions to the Village of Yellow Springs. Whereas Karen Wintrow has served with energy, wisdom, compassion, and dedication on Village Council for 12 years, with her elections into 4-year terms in 2005, 2009, and 2013. And whereas as council president, a position she held from 2013 through 2017, Karen has been a valued leader and colleague during the many diverse deliberations and difficult decisions. And whereas both council and the Village of Yellow Springs have benefited from Karen's ability to navigate the waters of controversy with skill and fairness, and from her continued leadership and support of the community in her roles as the executive director of the Yellow Springs Chamber of Commerce and board member of the Yellow Springs Development Corporation, as well as with a long list of committees and organizations. And whereas Karen has brought a passion and savvy for smart, good fit economic development that has positively impacted the village as a whole and has helped to ensure a thriving community that provides a rich quality of life for villagers. And whereas Karen is an incredible resource, generously providing creative, constructive, and action-oriented ideas with the willingness to do the associated work to execute them, and leaves Yellow Springs with multiple significant legacies, such as Cresco, Street Fair, and the motto, "Be yourself here." And the village will gratefully continue to tap into her institutional knowledge for context and insight. And whereas council wishes to honor Karen's commitment to the village values and her service to the community members of Yellow Springs and the village team, now therefore council for the village of Yellow Springs, Ohio hereby resolves that Section 1, Karen Wintrow is hereby officially recognized for her devotion and service to her community as reflected by her distinctive record of meaningful actions to sustain a thriving village of Yellow Springs. Section 2, Council for the Village of Yellow Springs hereby advises taking some time for yourself before getting deeply involved in the next chapter of initiatives that will make real differences in people's lives. And Section 3, Council for the Village of Yellow Springs will officially miss having you and Ted living in the village, but we know that we will stay in close touch and look forward to your insights from a different perspective. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
I happily move. Or second.
All right. Great. Lots of moves and seconds. I think we can do all those in favor. Signify by saying aye.
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 Thanks, Karen. Okay, we're going to move to citizen concerns. Remember, this is the time on the agenda when you can speak to anything that's not an agenda item. We ask that you limit those comments to 3 minutes. And I think Judy's going to keep time now. She was a little bit, open on the time earlier, but we'll try to keep those comments to 3 minutes. So Judy, I know you have something I think that you're reading. Is that right?
I do.
Okay, and so I'll time you since you're reading.
All right, this is from Urson North Star. And it says, the recent letter I wrote to the village council about what makes me feel unsafe is filled with my own fears, and those fears eventually led to anger. The fear and the anger have dissolved. Even if everything the mainstream media broadcasts were true, I would still refuse to wear a mask. Even if the village were swarming with lepers or poison gas, which it actually is, the poison gas that is, losing my humanity as a child of God, a being of freedom and love is a fate far worse than death. I do not fear. I cannot live without human touch, a human smile. I know that if I were to wear a mask, I would become soon enough less than human and others would need protection from me, the very opposite of what we are told. A mask keeps us anonymous. It keeps us from knowing who we are and who others are. I have no fear now because I know without a shred of uncertainty who I am. Nothing to do with race, gender, or politics, temporary constructs that keep us from knowing who we are, from knowing each other. Krishnamurti said it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. We have a far bigger problems on the horizon than monitoring our spittle and where we stand. We need protection from any wayward impulse that would deny us our humanity by robbing us of our freedom to choose, our freedom to love. This is not possible with social distancing, nor is it possible to love someone who refuses to show their face, at least not for me. The face of God is, after all, never masked. North Star. And that's entitled Choices. She wanted that to be made clear. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other citizen concern? And I did see, Carol, I don't know if you're still on, but I saw that I missed a brief question that you had. Sure. I don't know if you still want to ask that now.
I do.
Okay.
I can't see myself, but
I can see you.
My question is how are we proceeding now? It looks like the council accepted the comprehensive plan as is, but there still seems to be some movement forward so we can have discussions. What is the process?
I think that's got to be worked out, but I think, it starts with engaging the school board. And then I think we see where we move from there. I know this is on Laura's radar, so so I think I would interact with her, but I think that's the next step, is bringing the school board into the conversation.
And so we would try to have meetings with the school board, with the village council and the school board be there. I'm not sure what happens next or what we should do next. Should we invite them to talk with us? And who is us?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would recommend. I think I don't have a perfect answer for you because I'm not clear where the village's role or when the village has a role. But let's talk about it further. So I would say next step, I think you guys should definitely talk with the school board, because I know that they've indicated that they would like to be included. And then I think we, go from there.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Carol.
That was my question.
All right, cool. Any other citizen concerns? Okay, so we're going to move into special reports then. We are really happy. Hold on a second. Okay, no comments, Philip said. Really happy to have our county auditor, David Graham, joining us tonight. And we appreciate, David, you taking the time to talk to our community members and answer questions. And I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right. Well, hopefully everybody can hear me okay. So nobody's been happy to see me in about a month. So since those letters went, that's hasn't been something. I go to the grocery store at 6 in the morning now, so I don't have to see anybody. But obviously a reappraisal is part of our statutory requirements. We're required to reappraise every property in the county every 6 years and do a triennial update every 3 years in between. Kind of the difference is a reappraisal actually involves assessing the property and the condition of the property and the desirability of the area, where a triennial update tends to be more about what does the sales ratio tell you? If we're 5% low in an area, we have to raise it 5%. These reappraisal and triennial updates that we prepare are reviewed by the Department of Taxation. So if I lowball it, the Department of Taxation is going to say, hey, look, over in this taxing district here, you're at 90% of the sales price. You need to get up to 95. So that's the reason we can't do anything about in terms of we have to make sure our numbers match up with the sales that we report to the state. And they get a copy of every conveyance form that we have. So, I mean, it's this is the bad part of the job. My job is to appraise properties for what I think they would sell for at a given point in time. There were 3 counties that had asked for an extension because of COVID, and all 3 of those were denied. We actually held on to our abstract. There is a stipulation in statute that says the tax commissioner can grant an up to a 1-year extension. There was really no reason. We had our work done, and the statute kind of alludes to the fact that if you're unable to complete your work, we had our work done, but we were going to wait to see the 3 counties that applied for an extension, what happened with those. Obviously, I don't relish increasing property taxes during a pandemic, but it's my job, and so we've done our job. One of the things, so before we did our update, our sales ratio was at 75% in the village of Yellow Springs. Obviously 95% being, the state will actually accept anything from 93 to 97. So we hit that 95% mark by putting the increase. Again, every property didn't see an equal increase. It's based on market. Some areas of Yellow Springs, I jokingly say with my staff that the village of Yellow Springs should really be built into 3 neighborhoods. 1 walking distance to downtown, 1 riding your bike to downtown, and 1 is you have to drive to downtown. Obviously, they're a little more sophisticated than that. So once we completed that sales ratio, we got up to 90, or once we completed that update, we got up to 95%. And since just running numbers for 2020 sales ratio based on our new values and sales that have occurred in 2020, we are already down to 88%. So, I mean, this is an important factor. While I know areas and not Yellow Springs specific, whether it's Beaver Creek, Yellow Springs, Sugar Creek, areas that have high growth feel like they might be getting picked on a little more. It's because of the demand. It's because of the sales. Those sales are what dictate our values. And when those sales are skyrocketing, we have to chase those with values. Within your packets, council members, you have something that kind of explains how tax rates work. So you think about it, there's two different types of levies. There's inside millage, that's limited to 10 mills for any taxing district and represents about 12% of the total millage that village residents pay. If your value goes up 20%, your taxes go up 20% on those 10 mills. All of the voted levies, though, which make up the bulk of the levies that you're paying on, are intended to roll back. As values go up, the tax rate gets reduced. That's that effective tax rate that you hear us talk about. And the idea is that a reappraisal doesn't mean it costs more to provide services, and therefore those voted levies should not get the additional revenue from a reappraisal. There is, in addition to the 10 mills, inside millage as an exception. The other exception is the school district and career center have a floor. The school district has a 20 mil floor, so their effective tax rate for general fund levies cannot go below 20 mils. And then the career center has a 2 mil floor that their effective tax rate on general fund levies can't go below 2 mils. So that in essence treats those types of levies, which are normally subject to a reduction, as inside millage, and the school districts get additional money from that reappraisal because of that. That is kind of what I'd planned in a nutshell because I figured we would have some questions. So.
All right, thank you, David. And yeah, I'll start with council. Any questions for our county auditor?
This is Laura Curlis. How much total additional money will come to the school district and the village from that inside millage? Do you have a round number?
If I would have done this in my office like I should have, I could have looked it up fairly quickly, but that's something I'll be happy to report back to you on. I do not have that number off the top of my head.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments from council members?
I know you've heard this all over, David. Just people, a lot of people are just really kind of shocked, and it's yet, you know, as you say, it's during a pandemic, so it's taken people aback. The chart behind me, I'm not sure if you generated it, but it's how those values have gone up. I wish I had a green screen, but get myself out of it. But it's just, you know, that's the Yellow Springs values right behind me, going up and up and up. And it's certainly a challenge for our community, especially people on more fixed incomes. What kind of relief could people seek if they haven't sought it already?
Okay, so there are 3 tax credit programs. One is the non-business credit. Just by virtue of not being a commercial or industrial property, you qualify for that. There's the owner occupancy credit. So if you claim the property that is here as your primary residence, that saves you 2.5% on qualifying levies. So that's, again, that one's not a huge savings. It's going to be probably in the $50 to $70 a year range. The big program is the homestead program. If you're over the age of 65 or permanently disabled and have an Ohio adjusted gross income of less than $33,400, then you can qualify for this program. This one is the one that's going to save you, probably $500 to $600 a year on your property taxes. So those are the 3 tax credit programs. Unfortunately, in Ohio, that's it. There is nothing else that can be done in terms of reducing your taxes through a tax credit. Now, if you're a disabled veteran, through 100% disabled through military injury, then you can qualify for an additional homestead reduction. So I encourage people, if you think you qualify for homestead, it never hurts to ask that question.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from Lisa? Go ahead.
I was just wondering if we could have a summary of that to include on our village website and to disseminate in the next packet so that people would have those resources handy.
Absolutely. So one of the things I have tried to do is I want to add transparency. I mean, only government could take a simple formula like value times rate equals tax and turn it into what we have now. So we have a lot of resources on our website. First of all, I would say that anybody who's questioning the accuracy of their value should go to the auditor's page. We have a 2020 reval that allows you to bring up your property, look at the information we have on your property, make sure the data we have is correct. It also lets you look at sales in your area. But one of the key things I think we have is my office produced a white paper explaining property taxes in Ohio. And I sent a link of that earlier. And it actually goes through the presentation that was included in your materials. It goes through it in detail and lets you walk through the calculations of what goes on and includes an explanation of all of those rollback programs. I think that white paper, it's what, when I get a new state legislator, it's what I try to get them to read. I think it has a lot of really good information. It explains why townships are constantly seeking additional levies to provide the same level of service because of the rollback on those fire levies or road levies, where inside millage, they don't come back as frequently. So we have a lot of resources out there. I'll be happy to provide anything the village would like. Like I said, I want to be as transparent as we can, and I want to get people's taxes as low as we can, as long as we do it legally.
Hi, Brian. This is Philip.
Yep.
And this question is to David. David, can you just quickly give your website address verbally? And I know that we have the packet, but for the people that are actually watching, because I want to make sure that we can provide it to them, what is your actual website where these resources are found?
Okay. www.co.green, ending in an E, .oh.us/reval. That is the page that we designed specifically for this revaluation, so that people can go out. I mean, we've talked to a lot of people from Yellow Springs. This is the first time since before the recession that we saw double-digit increases in values. And so a lot of people, it's not that they disagree with the value, they just can't believe that a value could increase $50,000.
Sure.
And so, this is the resource we put together so that you can see what those sales are. So yeah, it's being brought up right now. So if you scroll, so the review my property actually brings up it'll bring up your property. You'll have to put in your address or parcel ID number, and will allow you to see the details on your property. The property search is a little more detailed. It gives you a history of your value and your taxes, as well as your information regarding your house. And then the coolest thing, and I only say it's the coolest thing because it's something I did myself instead of my IT department, was the property tax estimator. So if you want to know what impact this new value is going to have on your property, this allows you to put in your new value, pick your taxing district, which in this case would be F19. And property classification probably be residential or agricultural. And if you just put in $100,000 in there and hit calculate.
Oh, wow.
If scroll a little bit, that will give you what your estimated taxes are going to be. This is before credits. So if you're comparing, you can't compare this number to what you actually paid last year. You have to compare it to what your tax bill says your bill was before credits. I wasn't smart enough to figure that part out, but like I said, this is probably one of the biggest tools because a lot of our phone calls are, okay, I don't disagree with my value, but what's this going to do to my taxes? And I will tell you, this is a high estimate because there's certain levies that the Budget Commission actually sets the tax rate for, the emergency levies for the school district or the bond retirement levies for the school district, where we have to set that rate. We're in the process of gathering the data to set those rates now. So those rates really haven't been adjusted for the reappraisal. They'll come down a little bit more. So this is actually a little bit of a high estimate from what I expect.
Okay, David, I really appreciate that. And Josue, I thank you for pulling that up on your screen so we can get like a visual of it. And I think that people will be interested in visually seeing it. And I look forward to providing them more information. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, are there any other questions?
Go ahead, Carol.
Oh, this is really for the council, and it sort of triggers something I've been thinking about in the affordability of Yellow Springs. And I've wondered if there could be a program to help people with their taxes, their property taxes, who are low income. So they might be living in a house that is paid for, that they may have lived there 20 or 30 years, but their taxes are not manageable anymore. I think there are areas that have ways to address that a little bit so people don't have to leave.
Mm-hmm.
I hear about that all the time.
Yeah, thanks for that that thought, Carol. That's definitely something that I think we should look into.
So one of the things, there are probably 4 bills right now that deal with the homestead program, either expanding the dollar amount or decreasing the revenue or increasing the benefits. So the right now it's frozen over time. It's $25,000 a year that's exempt. And it would allow that to grow by a consumer price index or some sort of index. All 3 of these are good programs, and I encourage you to contact your legislators and explain to them, because I hear it every day. You're taxing me out of my house. And it's not something I want to do. I mean, when your own mother calls you at home and complains about her property value, you know you've gone a little too far or something. Something's not going right. So, these are things that, again, we have to work with our legislators, and I'll be happy to meet with anybody or meet with a group and talk about some of the issues that you guys are facing with regard to property taxes.
All right, we appreciate that, David. And thanks again for joining us this evening. And I'm sure you'll continue to stay busy and be in touch. So thanks again.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care. All right, we're going to shift into our other special report, which is on the electric system study. And I've got Johnny Burns taking the lead on that, I believe.
Hey, Brian, this is Johnny. Actually, we have the actual engineer that did the study, Mr. Jeff Gump, on the line from GBD. So I'm going to let him take over on his presentation.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Gump, as Johnny said. I work with GPD Group, and we were brought in to evaluate the electric system and do a brief overview. It wasn't meant to be really in depth, to the point of every line, but really the overall effectiveness of the system. And where, kind of where we expect it to be, where it needs to be, and what we can expect as far as some load growth. So again, and so we put together this report, and hopefully everybody's been issued the report. But we've got a quick slide or a PowerPoint presentation that I'd like to present to you, and with that, it's an open discussion here. If you have any questions, please just I won't have that controller be able to kind of see if anybody's got their hand up or anything. So just shout out to have me stop at a certain subject, and we can go over that. So especially if there's any, I know that some of the terms, maybe you're not familiar with some of the terms, and that's okay. We want to make sure that everybody is up to speed with that. So with that, I'll go ahead and share my screen and get started. All right. So hopefully everybody can see this currently. And this is where we'll begin. So just a quick agenda, what we're going to go over here with the introduction, what we expect to see with the load growth, the existing switching station, the substation that's out there that's owned and operated by the village, the distribution system as a whole, and concurrent project discussion. It's really just to really kind of bring it all together as to what those recommendations further down, how they can interact with one another. And then the probable cost of those construction for the some of the recommendations that were made in that report. All right. Again, the focus of the study was to review the specific, some of the certain or specific portions that we knew had some issues. So there's certain portions out there of the the guys that are out there working, or the folks that are out working these the electric system on a daily basis. They know where the trouble spots are, right? They understand where they have the most concern. So we kind of focused on what those were and what those concerns were, and then we expanded out from those concerns to see how we could address those concerns and how it would affect the overall system, and how we could increase things like reliability and be able to accept future load growth. And just kind of bring it all together back down into some plans and some recommendation. So as you can see in the second bullet point there, that we are reaching some of the limitations of the existing distribution system out there. And there's a couple of reasons why we say it's reaching its limitations, and mainly it comes down to conductor size. So and we'll get into that a little bit further down the road here too. But the conductor size itself, it has limitations. So as the load grows, or even in a situation where we need to possibly do some switching out there to keep more people on in an event. If there's an outage that occurs on one side of town, we like to isolate what that is so that it can be resolved and keep as many folks on as possible during that time. So it all comes down to how the system can be utilized and what its capabilities are. So we created a plan to correct those issues. Now, again, just like any other study or report, these aren't definitive. These are ideas, and they're with any kind of study, you want it to be kind of a moving, almost living document that you can kind of pull information from and see how does it still relate, because time does interact with these concerns. So we want to improve the reliability and connectivity for customers and create an improvement plan, as I said, for future growth and for the existing configurations that we have. So some of our findings here, as I mentioned, the distribution system is limited by the conductor size. So the conductor size determines the number of customers you can basically have on that line, right? So those are, so as the line in the case of Yellow Springs, a couple of the main lines that kind of go bracket the main load of the system and the more dense populated areas. Those lines, as they go out, they get smaller, which makes sense, right? There, you don't have to serve as many folks at the end as you do at the beginning, possibly, and so it makes sense from an electrical standpoint right up until the point where at the end of the line, maybe the two lines connect, and if you needed to serve one side or the other with that smaller conductor, you're very limited as to how far you can go. Limited to the point where you may not be able to operate that switch and keep many customers on in an event of an emergency. And we'll get into some of that, and I'll look at the kind of bring the map up, and we'll kind of show what we're thinking there and where some of those conductor size concerns are. So the existing layout out there limits the ability to sectionalize, and that's just what we were talking about there. The ability to isolate items or isolate issues, or even if you're doing they're performing routine maintenance that may require an outage, and if the system's not designed adequately, those outages can be both extended and more broad than what they need to be. So we want to be able to, again, we just want to be able to keep the lights on for as many customers as possible. So we also have another limiting factor is the number of circuits. So currently, the village takes service from DP&L from one circuit that they have, and then it's split at the in the photograph here. It's split at the switching station here into two circuits that serve the village, and that just having those two circuits is also a limiting factor. We like to have as many backup plans as possible in the electric utility, and that's if you have a major issue or major outage, maybe with the equipment, some of the equipment that you see in this photo, as a matter of fact, if you have an outage due to failed equipment, those outages typically are the longest. So, because it takes more time to get the replacement parts or get the replacement equipment in place, and so without additional circuits out there to support the load, we actually run into another issue, which is maybe overloading that one remaining circuit. Will it be able to support the entire town? So we want to make sure that we're doing something that's we're looking at it from all angles to make sure that we're capturing all of those issues and concerns. This is just real quick. Again, some of the things that we reviewed, and some of the information that was provided to us by the village, and which was excellent job that they did providing us with all the information that was required, to make some of these determinations. So the expected load growth. Now, again, we're not looking at this from a super analytical standpoint. We wanted to do it in a more broad. So a typical electric system that we review, we'll see an average of 2 to 3% growth in a year. Now at Yellow Springs, we found that that's quite a bit lower. Okay, that's less. Over the past 4 years, you've only increased just over 1.1%. With that said, please know that that's good. There's reasons for it. We can all come up with some reasons for that. However, it doesn't take much with a load that the system currently serves. It won't take much for that 1% to change to 2% or 3% in just 1 year, and that all depends on the development and how many new services are being provided, what who moves into town. If you got if you have a development such as if it's residential development, commercial development, somebody that pops in with a great new service and wants to connect to your system, then we've got to be able to, if you want to welcome that load, we have to be able to address it. We have to be able to serve it. So the Yellow Springs peak demand. So this is the peak, just as it sounds. This is the peak load that the system provides. Typically, this happens in most communities. It happens on the hottest days of the year, where everyone's running air conditioning to keep up. It also can occur on the coldest days. For the same types of reasons. You're trying to keep your inside climates corrected. So Yellow Springs, again, we talked about that it takes 12/4/7 service from DP&L on one circuit, and then its peak demand of that one circuit is approximately 8.5 MVA, which is the entire, the load. Now, right now, currently out there in the system, it may be somewhere in the 2 to 3, at this time of day, this time of night, that it fluctuates that much during the day even. But we have to have a system that's capable of serving that peak demand, and to keep everyone in service as expected. So DP&L has indicated that they have approximately 3.5 MVA of capacity remaining on that circuit that currently serves the village. So with that said, we then wanted to look at, all right, well, what's that look like for the future? If we're at 8.5 now, and we're only and DP&L says they can support an additional 3.5 before things really get messy out there. Then let's see, kind of where that leaves us. So future, we put this little graphic together real quick here to kind of show what an average 1,500 square foot home would add to that number, and how it kind of cuts into that available capacity. So an average 1,500 square foot home has a peak demand of roughly 10 kVA. So there's room there for some additional development, but how much and how quickly should that take place? So we want to make sure that the system is capable of that in the near future, so that that load growth can occur without any issue. So this is just a comment I wanted to make down here in the future commercial load. If you think about adding, if there's added residential load, then certainly you end up with a reflected commercial load that also increases as more services are required for those residents. So where does that, where does that leave us? One single new commercial or industrial customer would drastically impact that 3.5 MVA of capacity that DPNL currently has. So there's a lot of planning that would be required, especially if there was another commercial or industrial customer that would come to the area and want to connect to your system. Then right now as the system sits, that would be a major concern. So here's the existing switching station again. We talked about how it was served by just a single circuit. What we found here was the existing steel structure that you see here in this photograph is in good condition as far as the structure itself. Now, a lot of the insulators, switches, insulators, things of that nature, they should be replaced, along with some regulator stands that are crumbling. They're becoming a safety concern in their own right. Those regulator stands have switches on those, and they're wooden structures currently, and they need addressed pretty quickly. And that's what the bypass structure at the bottom there. That is a bypass switch in order to bypass those regulators. And there's some in the location of those regulators currently. They're right where they're right up against the fence or very close to it. They've got there's some brush and tree trouble that they can get into as well. So just kind of revamping those existing circuit exits would in general would benefit the village considerably. The distribution system. Again, we've got two. The village operates two distribution circuits outside that leave that switching station, and they leave the station at 4-aught, and the 4-aught conductor size has a limitation, as you can see here, of 7.88 MVA. So as a reminder, the village peak is 8.5. So one of those circuits, and it doesn't matter really where that 4-aught conductor sits with it. If you've got larger conductor and then it goes down to the 4-aught and then it goes back up to the larger conductor, it's just like water through a hose or through a water system there with a series of pipes. Your flow is restricted to the smallest pipe. Here, it's restricted to the smallest conductor size. So with that conductor size, you can see that just one circuit may not be able to support, depending on how that other circuit is disconnected or what has transpired. But one circuit may not be able to support the village completely in that scenario. And with that, that leads to other issues. Some places where we'd have to have to switch folks off just to keep some portions of the village on. But that can be rectified with conductor size. So as the circuits extend into the system, and this is where I was saying they get the circuit sizes, or I'm sorry, the conductor sizes of those circuits decrease in size as they extend out. So this, again, electrically, it seems okay, right until the point where you need to do some switching and operates things in maybe backwards from its normal flow. And in that case, those limiting conductors play a part. So adding a third circuit will also assist. Now that's something that, again, we'll go through the progression of where we kind of made those recommendations as to what should come first and prioritizing those recommendations as well. So creating distribution loops. This is what we talk about what I was saying, that with a loop, you can feed that loop, from any direction. So if you have a very localized outage somewhere, you could feed that from either direction. The larger conductors will increase the reliability of the system as well. New poles, of course, with that, we did notice that there's quite a few poles in the village that have been installed for quite some time, and they're showing their age. You can see some of them they start to bend in weird directions, and they just start to succumb to the load that they've been under for and those stresses that they've been under for many not So the new poles will when we install new poles, they'll have to not every pole out there would need to be replaced in these projects, but we would definitely be replacing the ones that would be required. So we have to look at what that load and the stresses and what those wood poles can take, and that generally leads to just slightly larger poles. And again, we like to go with a little bit taller pole to reduce the risks that are human risks, the safety factor, increasing space between the conductors, especially with between the primary conductors, the higher voltage conductors, and the lower voltage conductors, and the communication lines. All of that space is kind of governed by the NESC, the National Electric Safety Code, and so that's all human safety concerns when we're looking at constructing or designing these lines. So the concurrent project discussion, you guys are no strangers to projects and costs, and the concurrent project discussion is just basically to break down if you're able to do more than one project at a time, the cost savings can be considerable. So if you think about what it costs just for bidding a project, so that's just putting together the documentation, putting the advertisement in the paper, collecting the bids, and then reviewing those bids. That process alone, on the outside, where from the consultant side, is a $10,000 to $12,000 fee every time we have to take that time to do that. So if we can lump a couple of projects together, that cost is reduced to a single bidding. Also, mobilization by contractors, those costs are also per project and can get quite costly if you do more small projects, back to back and not concurrently. So these were some projects that we determined would most serve the village and the electric system. And first would be to do a load study with DP&L. So the information that we have, we always like to start with a report that's generated by the energy provider themselves, so that we have that documentation and we can always refer back to it in the future. So we want to basically nail it down as to this is what you're going to be able to provide to the village. for however many years we're forecasting for in that case, and really kind of pinpoint what that is and hold and it's a document that we can hold them to in the future as well. So the construction of the main loop, and this is where I'll show you on the map here soon. Construction of the main loop, that's the big ticket item. I'll get into that in a little bit more detail here. Switching station improvements. Again, this is where we talked about those voltage regulators, the regulator stands, those bypass switches, and creating one new additional line exit with the option of at least appropriating some space for additional in the future. Not necessarily installing, but just appropriating some space. Construct new feeder circuit. That is that one new single circuit coming out of coming out of the switching station. And then replace some areas of 4/0 ACSR conductor with the upsized 336 ACSR conductor, which when you upgrade to that size conductor, then you at that voltage, the entire system can be operated and switched on that upsized conductor, and that conductor has a capability or capacity of over 12 MVA. So there's plenty of room there. And then last but not least is to perform an actual load study of the system there in Yellow Springs. And that what we mean by this load study is to determine better methods of isolating and basically working with the protection scheme and how it operates. So if there's an outage or a tree limb that comes down at the end of the line somewhere, we don't want that occurrence, and that to make it all the way back to the recloser and the switching station, because then that whole line blinks out. If we can coordinate better, then hopefully what we're trying to accomplish with that coordination is that we can isolate outages faster by just having those those line segments that were affected initially. We can have those line segments turned off maybe by a fuse out there in the field, and keep everybody else's lights on. So let me look at the.
Sorry, quick question. So are these 6 projects, are they in priority order, or are they?
Yes.
All okay. So 1 through 6, that's most to least important.
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. And I guess also we probably should get to sort of summarizing and see if there are any questions.
Yeah, so this was just the overall map really quickly, and this green portion here, this is where we're talking about creating that large loop, and this is where the line conductors generally get smaller as they extend out from town, and so when you get down to the bottom, there's no way that you could serve if there was an outage. If there was an outage that occurred in here, we can't serve all the way back this way, and vice versa. So we would like to button this up by increasing the line conductor through that area, and so that's the main, that would be the main priority there. And there's also some there you can see, so there's some green sections here, and we would review. With those projects, we're going to review, line routes, exactly where they need to go, and prioritize that portion as well. But the other projects here, the switching station, and then the yellow line is that new circuit. And again, these lines are kind of shown in general placement, just for reference and to provide some distance. The one thing that I noticed here is that somehow I've got this little line here as red, and that is the load study that this is indicating, and that's not exactly it. The load study would encompass the entire system. So with that, if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer. And if there's anything that I can't answer or any other questions that come up beyond this, just let us know. I'll be glad to answer.
All right, Jeff, we appreciate it. And thanks for the very clear explanations. So any questions or comments?
I have a question. Is there any way to improve the circuit without having the visual impact of the great big poles?
So that is something that we work to do. However, one of the only ways that we would be able to do that is to go underground, and underground is incredibly expensive and requires more land, believe it or not. And so those are typically not options that we have. So what we try to do, what we would do in this case is to look at where we may be able to reduce the number of poles, but they would definitely, with that, we're not talking about that many that we would be able to, but occasionally we can in certain areas.
And then a related question, I find in a lot of cities that you sort of get leftover lines on poles. Like there's a lot of visual activity with lines that nobody's using and they never come down. Would part of this project be to clean up some of that?
Typically with the, we don't see that very common or very much with electric systems. So electric systems, every line that's up there is being utilized. What you may be referring to is communications, and with the communication lines, I'm not, those once folks are in that space, then maybe there's some places where there were some drops to like a service line that went to someone's home or a building of some nature. Those could be or should be addressed directly with that, whatever that communication company is, but that's not typically something that we do in these types of projects.
All right, any other questions?
Yes, this is Lisa. Quickly, this is a lot of very detailed technical information. We're getting ready to do our budget planning. And, for me going forward, I think what would help me the most is to look at the different proposed projects and understand, like, this is the direct win of doing this, spending that money. This is the risk you're facing if you don't. So you kind of have a risk benefit for all of them that is more at a glance to promote decision-making at our council level. Thanks.
And I'm sorry, I do not have, I don't have anything like that currently. It's definitely something that maybe we take for granted when we're putting these together, because we're kind of living that those same ideas as to what is the risk reward, and what is that what is that impact? Can you see that? Can you see the effectiveness right away? And in some of these cases, if we do it correctly, then there's there's outages that are reduced. Then that's the only kind of telltale that we have out there. But as far as determining what would happen if we did nothing, versus doing one or two of the projects, it comes down to speculation, and I'd hate to try to determine where we may see the next storm event, or a wind event or something along those lines. So we're trying to address we're trying to address the issues that we know exist out there as in the system currently. And if we can address those, then the impact should be minimal, or the effectiveness should be great. So the fewer phone calls would be the real tell.
Okay, well, I think this is definitely something that I think it's a good point, and we can look at that when we're working on budget and see what else we can develop around pros and cons. All right, Kevin, you look like you're off mic. So did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, just a quick one. And just to ask Jeff, do a set of projects like this, of this size, is this typically a multi-year project, or is there a relationship between one project and the very next project in terms of how quickly the follow-on project gets done?
Yeah, and that's a very good question. That the length of like the green loop that I showed in the map there, or indicated in the map, that's something that's going to take a considerable amount of time. And so that if you start a project along those lines, it's going to certainly span at least 18 to 24 months. From the development stage all the way through completion. So as far as planning goes with that, as we there are a couple of projects there that would really benefit from being concurrent, and those would certainly be the switching station and the new line exit. I think that those two in conjunction would be very beneficial to have together, and have to have crews that are working on both of those projects at the same time would be a huge benefit.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I think great questions. Thanks for all the details, Jeff. I know that Johnny and the team will continue to work with you, and I think I'm going to move us into old business. So thanks again.
Thank you all.
All right. Okay, so old business. I will start with a quick update, and I do mean quick, on our meaningful anti-racism actions. We had a great meeting last Tuesday, including Laura led a discussion about starting to look at decriminalizing minor misdemeanors. We talked about training, and some of you may know that Village Council and the mayor have been added to the village's training list with some recommended trainings. Kevin is working with the team on a spreadsheet to chart out what we're doing as we evaluate our diversity and implicit bias interactions through that training platform. And then we can see what else we need. And the last thing is I got a report from Angela Allen that the final details for the community sit downs were worked out, and those should be starting very soon. So I think those are the main things to highlight from the last meeting, and hopefully we'll have more time to talk about some of the progress at our next meeting. So Josue, CARES Act.
All right, Brian, thank you so much. I got a bit of a PowerPoint presentation here. All right. All right, this is a summary of where we stand on the overall CARES Act funding that we received. The CARES Act funds total $330,244.33. That includes the third distribution that Council approved tonight to appropriate through the supplemental appropriations process. We also received $12,000 from the Office of Criminal Justice Services for COVID-19 related services. That brings our total to $342,244.33. To date, we spent on non-personnel expenses $76,534, with COVID-related expenses, personnel expenses exceeding $112,217.89, with additional personnel expenses to take place between now and the end of the year. However, in speaking with Brian and others, we looked at allocating $80,000 of the CARES Act funds to cover wages for COVID-related activities such as pool, John Bryan Center, that's the Learning Center, Channel 5, Communications, and Public Safety. So we had a couple of deadlines to meet, and that was that by the tomorrow's reporting deadline, we have a reporting deadline tomorrow, we needed to encumber the first $135,000 in distribution. We exceeded that amount. We've encumbered $184,000 with $76,634 in non-personnel expenses and the $80,000 in personnel wages. So that leaves a remaining of $146 to be allocated. So this is where you come in. How, you may ask? Well, we've got a project list together and a priority. You're going to see two columns on the right-hand side. The first column is the amount, and that's the projected cost or allocation for that particular project. And the column to the right of that is a scenario in which we ask our partners, very kindly I may ask, for money. We ask them to pitch in and help us accomplish these projects. So we've got several overtime in the police department. We're looking to spend about $11,000. This is coming from the law enforcement grant. We want to allocate that $11,000 of that to that overtime expense. Then we've got ongoing support, which is the hand sanitizer stations that you've seen throughout town, and a few other things that we do to ensure that we are providing a safer space in the downtown area and other parts of the town, so that folks can feel safer going to the downtown. There is no safe feeling, there's only a safer, and given where we are today at a level 3, this is more important than ever. So we'll continue those efforts. We've also ordered 2 tents. These are 2 large 20 by 20 tents for events and just public space that we can set up on the John Bryan Center location and the parking lots and whatnot, wherever we need them. We talk a lot about the wireless mesh downtown public Wi-Fi. I'm sorry, I need to eliminate the wireless mesh because it's a fixed wireless now. It's a public Wi-Fi downtown. And that makes a big difference because we're going to have a 1 gigabyte internet speed in downtown. That's blazing fast, faster than any service we can get through Spectrum over copper wires. So that's we're going to kick that off on the 28th is the official unveiling. So there's $27,000 set aside for that, or a little bit over, from our contribution. That doesn't include the contributions from our partners. The school district is pitching in $21,800. There's the MBECA is providing a lot of in-kind support, their expertise, and we're riding their fiber to get that bandwidth. So a lot of in-kind contribution there from MBECA, and we've got a $2,000 donation from an anonymous donor. Came in and just in disguise dropped off a $2,000 check. So really appreciate that support from community members. Moving on, we've got the Learning Center. Brian, thank you for the shout out. It really means a lot for the team here because, you know, we recognize a lot of our school children don't have a suitable environment to go to school online in their homes. And so we feel fortunate that we have a team that is committed to seeing our young people grow and have educational opportunities. And we're going above and beyond the safety measures to ensure not just the safety of our personnel, but the safety of the school children and the parents and the family members to ultimately go back home to. So we've got that $10,000 allocation for the Learning Center. COVID-19 business response services and coordination. This is a general business support. I don't think that we could have built the resiliency that we built in our community without our partners, particularly around a business response, where the collaboration assisted businesses to be able to retool and get online and be able to conduct sales online, have online ordering and delivery and pickup and whatnot. So I think it's important that we continue to make those investments because the heart of our village is the downtown. That's the engine of our village, and we need those jobs. We need those folks to continue to have access to economic opportunities. So we all benefit from those business activities. So that's a $10,250 allocation. Then the Wayfinding for Business Economic Development Council very eagerly and enthusiastically supported this proposal as it came before council, and one of the tasks that I had was to look at looking at this business activity if it fell under the guidelines of the CARES Act, and it certainly does. It's providing economic support activities, helping revitalize or support, encourage business activities in our downtown corridor. So it does fall within some of those guidelines, and we can move that project onto the CARES Act distribution. The senior centers, I'm amazed with what Karen and her team at the senior center have been able to do to not just close the digital divide and the gap in the senior population, but they've been innovative with their programming, their digital engagement projects, things such as having dance classes to groups, social networking groups online. I think that there are several activities that if we provided additional support can go much further, primarily because we don't know when the end of COVID is going to be. I think for the senior community, the online platform is where they would rely for their engagement for the foreseeable future. So I put this project up there. That's something that we could support the senior center and being able to continue that digital engagement work that they're doing. The next project, you've heard me talk about running fiber to the apartment building on Corey Street. This is important to be able to connect the school children. And we're also running that fiber, being able to connect our wastewater treatment facility. This would also build out infrastructure for fiber that homes around that stretch, this is almost a mile of fiber that we're contemplating, would then be available to other entities, such as the Glen Helen Association. You may know that from Corey Street, the Glen Helen Association, the Glen Helen building will be accessible from this fiber run. So that's another stakeholder that could be added along with other properties on Corey Street. This project would be shared with Embecca, and also this project is one that we think we can get support from the county and other municipalities that if they have unused funds, we can certainly take them and put them to good use. The HVAC retrofit for businesses, you may be aware that we've done the HVAC retrofits here at the John Bryan Center, the train station, and the libraries. We've added ionization technology that kills germs, bacteria, mold spores, and bad odors. So we've done that for our facilities, and it'll be great to provide that support to the local businesses, particularly now that we're going into the winter season, the flu season, and we anticipate more people wanting to do business in our downtown and indoors. So I think this would be a good endeavor to embark on. And I've heard several council members that have expressed interest. The next line item here is utility assistance for residents. Florence Randolph was instrumental in getting the township to make a contribution to this program. So I'm very thankful that that Florence worked on this, and that Chris Butcher and Don Hollister and Mark were open to making this contribution to assisting our residents. So that's on the list because we want to keep a running tally of those projects, but it's not on the right-hand side because we don't anticipate an additional expenditure for us on this particular project. Next one is drones for inspection, 1 unit. In this COVID time, where our team is avoiding contact with residents, not just for our safety, but the safety of our residents. So there are a lot of things that we are limited in what we can do because we don't want to go inside of folks' homes and or go onto their properties. So this drone would assist in some of those inspections, and then also with inspections with our utility lines. You've heard from Jeff earlier that we've got some infrastructure that we need to improve on, and having a drone and a pilot that could fly these drones, we can do some of that aerial inspection without putting employees at risk. This is an eligible activity under CARES Act, so we'll put it up on the list. The next 2 items, this is a wish list. Some of these projects are in what I thought would be priorities for council, but you're absolutely at liberty to move them up or move them down, and we can discuss them further. But these 2 items, wireless water meters to prevent meter readers from entering properties as you know, many of our water meters are inside the crawl spaces or basements or homes of some of our residents. And we don't want to put residents in any exposed risk by having our meter readers going in and try to get a read. So we want to pilot some of these wireless water meters to be able to move them either out of the crawl spaces or be able to attach wireless receivers or readers to them so that we could read those devices and test out technologies that we could implement down the road. And finally, seed funds for municipal broadband. I think this is, I don't know if you had an opportunity to read the day and daily news about our public Wi-Fi program that's going to happen downtown. Day and Daily News wrote a nice article and quoted me as saying that there isn't a future for municipalities if we cannot connect our citizens to a broader marketplace in the world. And I stand by that statement. That's true. Broadband is the superhighway, and we need to be able to connect our citizens to a broader marketplace, whether that's labor marketplace or education. It is a must. And so I think that if we make this investment as a community, it's gonna have some tremendous return on the investment for us down the road. And I think that concludes. Brian, I can keep going.
Well, no, you can't. But yeah, that was a great overview, and I think it was important to take a little bit of time. Do council members have any quick questions or feedback now? And certainly, this is something you could communicate with Josue offline as well. So any questions or comments?
I think the waterless or wireless water meter thing seems like a low-hanging fruit and not that much money and would be worth doing. I'm sure that residents would appreciate it as well as the meter readers, I would think anyway.
All right, thanks. Anything else?
I think we should think hard about drones just because there's a lot of other issues with them in terms of privacy and where they go and what they can see. We passed, I know this isn't surveillance.
There's a surveillance ordinance, and we wouldn't use it for any surveillance technology. This would be primarily utilities and inspections.
Yeah, I think people would want to know more what that would be like.
Okay, good point. Anything else? Okay, so I know that Josue is continuing to work on finalizing this. He's going to get a report out at the end of the month. We are on track for asking for unallocated funds as well, which is part of what Josue was showing in that scenario. So great work. Let's go ahead and move to new business. Lisa.
Okay, it's very late, so I'm going to make this brief. Hopefully you had a chance to look at the public art proposal that was in the packet. It was from a group called Help Us Make a Nation. Help Us Make a Nation is a local nonprofit with a long-term plan to bring a series of murals depicting notable African Americans from Yellow Springs. And their first one is to work with Arnold Adolph and other local artists and the news to coordinate the completion of a piece of artwork honoring Yellow Springs' renowned children's book author, Virginia Hamilton. And the design is based on elements of a book cover of the book, The People Could Fly, and also images of the author herself. And it will be replacing a 15-year-old mural on the northeast side of the Yellow Springs News Building. Help Us Make a Nation is currently seeking $1,000 in funding from the Village Art and Culture Commission. They've already received $5,000 in a grant from the Community Foundation, and they're fundraising from community members. Stokes and I see this proposal at the intersection of Art and Culture Commission and the HRC, and we've confirmed that we have the budget and we'd like to move forward with this. We wanted to bring it to your attention, though. I think this is another wonderful project in addition to the banner project that we can help support in a small measure. Any objections?
All right, looks great. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Kevin. And glad to see the Arts and Culture Commission and the Human Relations Commission collaborating.
Great. There are 2 other projects in the pipeline that I'll talk about another time.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, the other item that we added on new business that we will see whether this is requires more discussion or not. Everyone saw Susan Jennings' letter and request. Josue, can you just run us through, from your perspective on the village side, any pros or cons related to this?
Yes, I guess there's 2 aspects to this. One is the project itself, which is a bike path connecting the village out to Agraria. We talked about making our community more bike friendly and better connected, and certainly having that the bike path extension from that part of the town, the high school through Agraria, would help facilitate access not just for high schoolers and program participants, but the broader community. So that's, I find value there, and it's sort of a protected area where the bike path will cut through. The proposal here, or what council will be discussing, is what is council's role or the government's role in owning a bike path or being part of this project. And one is that I think one of the sentiments you heard earlier in this meeting is that our citizens value public space and bike paths enough, or a lot, I should say. And I think that the village government having an ownership stake and a role in ensuring public access to bike path and the acquisition and protection of such resources align with not just our government values, but those of our community. Does that cover it enough, Brian, or you want me to go to any more specifics?
No, I think that's good. What about this proposal about using the Green Space Fund?
Right. Currently, the proposal is that the application that the Agraria has secured funding from doesn't allow them to cover any acquisition costs or leasing cost. So the proposal that Susan and her team have proposed is that we use funds from the Green Space Funds, which currently has $270,000, to make the acquisition. The village would put up the money up front in the acquisition, but that Agraria would pay back over a 15-year period what is the equivalent of $30,000 in today's value. And so then that would create a situation where we're jointly pursuing the acquisition of this bike path to preserve it for community use. If the question is about that fund being available in the green space, yes, it is available. In terms of the origins of the green space fund and how it was created, I think that you have more context than I do on that, since it predates me. But there would be enough money in that fund to make this commitment and also retain or continue the commitment that the village council and village government have made to other partners, specifically the Tecumseh Land Trust, to provide funds for acquisition or conservation easements of the Jacoby greenbelts.
Okay, I think that is all complete detail. Council members, questions or comments? Okay, well, I'm gonna then, Marianne, did you have something?
I'm not clear exactly where it would run through the school property. Is it at the very southern part?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes, that's correct. In the southern part of the high school. And Susan's online. I saw her just popped up on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
just to answer questions. Yes, it is the southern end. I included a survey. It's 3 acres essentially on the southern end of the school land.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from council members? Okay, then I think it doesn't seem like there's really any opposition. I think that the Green Space Fund does contemplate a variety of things like a linear park. So I'm going to make a motion that we buy the property at $60,000 from the Green Space Fund with the condition that half of that will be paid back over the 15-year time period. And I do want to clarify that because Agraria is leasing it, it doesn't add any maintenance burden for the village. All right, so that's my motion. Is there a second?
Second.
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 Okay. And Judy, if you could call the roll, please.
Brian?
Yes.
From a legal perspective, I would say you're not making a motion to purchase the property, but to offer to the school board to purchase the property for that amount.
Okay.
That might need some point of negotiation.
Gotcha. Do I need to do the motion again, you think?
You can move to amend your own motion, I suppose.
Okay, so I'll move to amend my motion to exactly what Brianne just said. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and Judy, call the roll, please.
Stokes,
Yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
McQueen. Yes. Curlis.
I have to abstain, Judy. I did some legal work on this project for Community Solutions. Thank you.
Okay. Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Susan. Thanks for bringing this to us.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Brian, we work on our end to start communication with the school board and also bring a resolution back to the council.
Excellent. Okay. Thanks for all the background on this.
Yeah, really appreciate that, Josue and Brian. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Okay, manager's report. We'll take any questions that you have for Josue. And then we're going to do Lisa's nominations, and then we're going to wrap things up. So does anyone have any questions for Josue on the manager's reports? Okay. Josue, anything that you need to say, or you're good?
I'm good. I'm excited to have Dylan on board. We've also published information on the issue 5, the property tax levy, on our website. We're releasing tax budget information up there too. So any feedback you have, I appreciate it, so that we are meeting your expectations and providing useful information to you and our constituents.
All right. Thanks, Josue. Thanks, Matt. All right, Lisa.
I'd like to make 2 nominations for the Art and Culture Commission. The first person I'd like to nominate is Naya Brevik. Naya is local to Yellow Springs. She's now attending university, but because of the pandemic, is studying online and so is very available to participate. She's very passionate about the arts activism, and she's also been very active with the Justice System Advisory Group. If there's no objection, I will try to do both at once. Is that okay? Okay, the second person I'd like to nominate is named Lori Freeman. Lori has a background in graphic design and art exhibition design, management of public programs and festivals in the Chicago area, park district manager, including fitness and pool and museum management. She's worked as an administrator for both teen and senior programs. And also, interestingly, her education includes focus on dementia and Alzheimer's, which I know is consistent with other projects in the village for people that have some different cognitive challenges. So with that, I would like to nominate Lori Freeman and Naya Brevik.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second those motions.
Second.
Okay. Judy, let's do a roll call.
Yes. Curlis.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes. Okay. Any other board and commission things that any council member needs to share at this point? Okay, future agenda items. Any thoughts?
Are we bringing the resolution for the $60,000 to the school board next meeting, Josue?
I think we can certainly bring it by then.
Okay.
One of the things we need to work out the arrangement with the school. So that may either be part of a separate resolution.
Right. And yeah.
So we may be bringing two resolutions, one authorizing us moving forward with the intent to purchase, and then the actual resolution to purchase and finalize the transaction, the real estate transaction.
Okay. Anything else?
Just can I mention that it looks like, I'm fairly certain we're set up for budget meetings on October 26th from, I think it's 5 to 7, and October 29th from 5:30 to 7:30. And again on November 3rd from 8:15 a.m. to 10:15 a.m. And I'll have those out to the Yellow Springs News unless I hear a dire objection from a member of council overnight.
Okay. All right. So, well, I think we're good. We've got plenty of other agenda items, and we'll be mindful at the next meeting of how long this meeting went. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. Good night, everyone. Great meeting.
Good night.
All right, it was good.
Night.